asada?
Yes, it is. Don't mess with my carne asada. It's one of the things I can't cook, but I really enjoy.
There you go.
And they deliver. That's the worst part. Because I gotta wait. Even my dog, I even got her a taco today. She's so spoiled. Ooh, anyway, are we about to start anytime soon? Because I'm ready.
Yeah, 5:30 is our start time, so we got a couple more minutes. Very, very soon, though.
Okay.
Erica, I'm willing to do a funny hat day, but I don't want to be the only guy with the funny hat on.
Oh, come on, Ed. You know, you got to lighten it up a little. We will have no judgment against you if you want to. Of all the meetings as co-host, you get to dictate the style of this meeting.
Well, we could start
after
30 meetings. Yeah, after 30 meetings, we ought to pretty much know each other.
Exactly. No more introductions needed. You know, everyone already loves you. It's fine.
We'll see how it rolls. Thank you.
Well, for those of you that are just joining us, we are debating whether or not Ed should wear a funny hat during this meeting. We think so, but feel free to weigh in. But also know that we're going to get started in just a couple of moments. We are slated to begin at 5:30, and I see a number of people are joining. We're so happy to see you tonight, and we'll get started at about a little after 5:30 when we've got the majority of our CSC members logged in.
Así que vamos a comenzar en unos cuantos minutos. Faltan unos minutos para las 5:30, que es cuando vamos a comenzar la junta oficialmente. Así es que vamos a esperar un poquito más para que se unan los miembros del comité y entonces comenzaremos. Bienvenidos.
Hannah and Eric, I just wanted to give you a heads up that I gave your contact information to someone from the Department of Pesticide Regulation today. They want to reach out to you guys. So just wanted to give you a heads up.
Thank you for that. Did you give email or phone numbers since we're not really in the office?
Oh, I got a phone number. Did you want that now? I can send it over.
No, just there. Did you give our email or our phone number? Because we're not in the office, so those phone lines aren't quite as effective.
I gave them your phone number, but you know what? I can go ahead and call her back and give her your guys' email.
That would be awesome, and then maybe we'll just connect back with her just to make sure, since you know it's always a little iffy since we're all working from home.
Okay, not a problem. I'll do that.
Thank you. And then Mari, before we get started, are you good with the live translation?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and pull up that screen as well so that I have it.
Great, thank you so much. For those of you that are just joining us, we're going to get started in just a couple of moments. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing some of your evening with us. We're slated to start at 5:30, and we'll try and get going right on time or as close to 5:30 as we can. On the screen is some instructions for changing your screen name so that we know who's on the line, and to sign on to the Spanish language interpretation channel if you would like to hear this meeting in Spanish.
En la dispositiva que tenemos enfrente de nosotros podemos ver las instrucciones de cómo se pueden unir tanto a la línea telefónica si nos están marcando por teléfono. En lo que es la casilla azul en la esquina de la mano derecha pueden ver que tenemos el número gratuito y el código de acceso. Y también si se están uniendo y están utilizando la plataforma de Zoom, también tenemos las instrucciones aquí en la pantalla. Una vez más, recuerden, solamente seleccionan el icono que parece un mundo que dice interpretación. Enseguida le va a dar una lista de los lenguajes. Van a elegir el español. Pueden silenciar su audio original para que de esa manera solo escuchen la junta en español. Y si tienen cualquier pregunta o comentario, le damos la bienvenida para que lo haga en español. Bienvenidos.
Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30, and so we are going to move forward, getting started with our AB 617 South Central Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting. If you are just joining us, we do ask that you put your phone on mute to reduce the background noise. While we have a meeting of 60 or 70 people, usually it's always helpful to make sure that we reduce background noise as much as possible. Looks like we've got a pretty good group with us, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome to the AB 617 South Central Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting. It does not look like we are recording on Facebook just yet. Do we have a Facebook Live recording yet?
We are having some issues tonight. Yeah. What I'm going to do is jump on our Facebook and share the Zoom link so we can get folks that are looking onto Facebook over into our meeting while we figure out what happened.
Sounds good. Well, we can maybe keep going. We're not doing any of the business part yet, so we'll keep with the introductions and then mostly make sure that everyone that's on the Zoom line knows how to manage the controls for that meeting. And when we get to the agenda portion, we'll make sure we're streaming live. So my name is Erica Manuel. I'm the CEO of the Institute for Local Government, or ILG, and I have my colleagues Kim and Hannah here today who are going to be working with me in front and behind the scenes to manage the logistics of this meeting. They should be waving their videos right now, and feel free to reach out to them at any time if you have any issues technology-wise or other. And before we go too far, we always like to make sure that our Spanish-speaking participants have everything they need to see, hear, and understand and participate in this meeting. So I'm going to check in with Mari or Ana and see if they can share those instructions in Spanish and make sure that our Spanish-speaking participants are good.
Thank you, Erica.
You got it, Reina?
I can help.
Okay, thank you, Reina.
Sabemos que tenemos a Mario un poco ocupada el día de hoy, así es que voy a apoyar simplemente dando las instrucciones una vez más. Si apenas se está uniendo a la junta y no ha seleccionado interpretación y le gustaría escuchar en español, por favor seleccione el icono de mundo si está por medio de Zoom que dice interpretación y va a seleccionar su lenguaje de español. Y de esta manera va a poder escuchar toda la junta en español y hacer comentarios. Los puede hacer tanto escritos como por la plataforma. También tenemos una línea de conferencia donde puede participar si nos está llamando por teléfono. Tenemos el número gratuito en la pantalla. En la parte inferior de mano derecha pueden ver el número de teléfono y el código de acceso donde pueden marcar. Y si están en su dispositivo utilizando lo que es la plataforma de Zoom, también pueden poner en silencio el audio original. De esta manera pueden participar sin tener ninguna interrupción.
Thank you, Reina. Do we have any issues with any of the lines, or are we good to go?
Looks like we are good to go.
Excellent. Thank you, Maricela. All right. Well, welcome to everyone who's joining us tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be with us. We are here tonight to continue making progress on improving the air quality in South Central Fresno. And my role is to really be the facilitator of your meeting. So ILG is a nonprofit. I am a neutral party here to make sure that all of your voices are heard, that our tone and our discussions are respectful, and that we accomplish all the key objectives from our agenda. So my job is also to stay on schedule and make sure that our meeting starts on time and ends on time as much as possible, while also making sure you get a chance to communicate what you think is important to your fellow committee members and to the Air District and other stakeholders on the line. So as many of you know, these CSC meetings started with in-person meetings, more than 18 months ago, and we have really transitioned pretty well to Zoom, but there's still some technology glitches and complications, and we're still waiting to see if we're Facebook Live streaming, but we're going to get there soon. One thing that I will tell you is that when you're engaging with 60 to 70 people over 2 hours, there's always a little hiccup here and there. So we appreciate your patience, and we appreciate all of the diligence that you all make to make sure that we share the time and the screens today. So before we get to the agenda review, I want to make sure that we are online, but we are going to kind of go over the agenda, and then we're going to make sure that it reflects exactly what you identified as your key priorities as a committee over the last couple of weeks. There are agenda setting meetings that take place in advance of every one of these meetings. where your committee members kind of talk about what's important, what they think is relevant for this. And so we certainly take all of those considerations into effect. While we are waiting, let's see, I don't know if Heather has any updates or if we'll get a notification when we do get online.
I think
but while we're waiting.
Go ahead and proceed, Erica. I'm not sure it's resolvable.
Okay.
I don't have it yet, but go ahead and go.
No worries. Well, we will keep going.
And Erica, I'm sorry, just let me interrupt real quick. If any of the members know of the members of the public, if they get an email or something of folks trying to participate, feel free to just send them the Zoom link. We'll just go ahead and send it out. We might have a few more public members join today. We apologize, we're investigating what's going on, but yeah, we have no problem with you sharing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. We do see on the screen right now ways to update your screen name. Please do that to make sure that your screen name reflects your name and your attendance. And I do see a blue hand with the phone number that ends in 05528. Did you have a comment about changing your screen name?
Yes, Erica, that blue hand has been up.
Oh, no, Laura Rosenberger. I'm okay. I don't have a question yet. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Well, your hand is up. We'll lower that hand, and we just wanted to make sure before we get started that we reflected that. We're going to go ahead and keep moving, and we're so happy to see you all today. Let's go over the agenda for today's meeting. All right. So at the last meeting, we discussed some options for annual planning, and it's really good at this time of year to take a pause, to explore what's working well, what needs some improvement. And so the intent is to kind of be thoughtful about how we're going to move forward in 2021, how we're going to get where we want to go, and how we're going to do that together. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that at the beginning of this meeting, outlining our approach to annual planning. And then we're going to dive into the first part of that planning discussion with this full group. Then we're going to move to our standing committee updates, our enforcement updates, and then wrap up. We are going to be taking one agenda item out of order today in order to accommodate a scheduling request. So we are going to be hearing from Scott, I believe, with the truck reroute today. And we're going to hear that from that first, right after we cover the logistics and intros. But before we do that, I want to turn it over to Kim quickly for a Zoom control refresher for those of you that just joined us and that may be new to this meeting. If you haven't been on Zoom before, here's some instructions for etiquette and moving forward with our meeting.
All right, thanks everyone for joining. Just a reminder to stay on mute throughout the meeting and raise your blue hand if you have a comment or a question and we will call on you. Also feel free to drop it in the chat. We love also how you've been utilizing the @ symbol. If you're replying to someone, we love to track all the different comments because we know it can get crazy. But just a reminder that the chat is not private. So just to be respectful. And if you have two devices, phone and video, you can link them by using your participant ID. You can also text or chat me, and I'm happy to do that for you as well.
Thank you. As you know, and typically our meetings are streamed on Facebook, and if we do get that figured out, we will be streaming on Facebook today, but these meetings are open to the public. And so one of the things that we like to do is make sure that our public members do have an opportunity to comment. We do take typically public comment at the end of our meetings, but if we have time, and we will certainly check in to see if there are public comments at the end of certain sections to make sure that you have a chance to weigh in. And again, translation options are available for our Spanish speaking community. So if you'd like to sign into the Spanish line, please do so. As a reminder, the chat etiquette and others, you know, the chat can get very, very busy. And so my colleagues, Kim and Hannah, will keep an eye on the chat to make sure that we see everyone's comments and reflect them. All right, so let's go to roll call. As you remember, we no longer need to do a full verbal roll call during these meetings, but we do ask that you change your screen name as much as possible. That's important for those of you that are tracking your attendance for stipend participation. So this renaming process does connect to the stipend process, and we like to check the attendance logs and the chat to make sure that we track everyone who is there. If you are the stipend program, please stay on the line for 75% of the meeting. And if you are not, we hope that you'll just give us a heads up if you're heading out. If you need to leave earlier, those, it's helpful but not required. At this time, is there anyone that needs to be renamed Kim, or anyone on the line that needs a little hand besides those of you that are on the phone?
Yeah, I'm seeing a District 5 screen name. If we can rename that, if you can unmute yourself, and then I know the phone number, the 814 area code. I didn't catch her name when she spoke up earlier.
Was it Laura on the phone?
This is Laura Rosenberger
Laura.
Hyder.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Excellent. So if you, I think that's all the renaming that we need. And I think we should be good. All right, so let's continue moving forward with our agenda. Thank you all for your patience while we dispense with a few of the formalities. So as a reminder, at the last meeting, I made a promise to you that I would make sure to get input from our residents and our quieter participants even more. And I know that it's so important to have this balanced discussion that really reflects your priorities. And so don't be surprised if I call on you during this meeting, or if I ask you to keep your comments short or place them in the chat. If I do that tonight, it's to make sure we do have that balanced discussion and we hear from as many of you as possible and that we stay on time. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan for the Air District welcome, and then our community co-host, Ed Ward, who does or does not have a funny hat on. I don't see it now, but he's been debating whether or not that makes sense. And then we're going to hear from Scott out of order so that we can get that item taken before he has to step away. So Ryan, and then Ed, and then Scott.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and so nice to see all of you. Nice to see another packed house at these meetings, and I know how much time and energy so many of you have invested in this program, and can't thank you enough. Definitely want to also thank the agency, members of the city, various other organizations, CARB, that also attend these meetings and participate. And looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have tonight on ways that we can enhance and improve the processes and to meet our goals and objectives. So yeah, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful co-host, Ed Ward. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. It's always nice to get a lead with wonderful co-hosts, so I appreciate that. I'm going to make a deal with you guys. I'll put the funny hat on at the end when we close tonight, if we all do a good job, but I'm sure we will. I just had a couple of thoughts as a co-host that I think are so very, very important. We are now into 30 meetings over a year and a half. It is amazing to me how far that path we have come down. And I'm really proud to be a part of, or actually humbled to be a part of the group that we are. There's such diversity. Everyone's worked hard to learn their lessons regarding clean air and what we can all do to help each other. And I'm so very thankful to be a part of that. You know, our challenge tonight is we're going to develop how we want to administer our SERP ultimately. And it's going to be really important with all the different groups that are here and participating, that everybody have good input. We need to build a base that allows everyone to have a win ultimately. We need all groups to have their opinions and concerns brought forward. And then we need to be able to develop a system where we can evaluate it in the future. And if it's not giving us what we want, it's not that it's failed, it's just that we need to readjust it. And I'm, again, so very thankful to be a part of this, and thankful that I was asked to be a facilitator, or not facilitator, but a community co-host. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. That was a really great intro and really kind of leads us into the planning process, which we're going to start. But first, we are going to hear from Scott, who I think is on the line, to take us this item briefly out of order to accommodate the schedule. And I know, Scott, you've got a couple updates for the committee. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and giving your update. And this is normally under the standing updates section of the agenda. We're going to take just one little piece of it early on. So Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Erica. And Scott Mosier, City of Fresno. Let's see, is everyone able to see the screen? I have just a very brief update. Very good. So a few key things with any project often is funding as well as schedule. So I wanted to provide a good news update. We had some discussion about funding and what was in a budget motion before and why wasn't it a certain way. But as a city team, we really want to clean that up. So we have an agenda item tentatively scheduled for March 4th, approval by our Fresno City Council. That will be confirmed on the Friday before when the agenda is posted. But from Public Works Department perspective and on behalf of City Manager, we're moving that forward. As noted here, that's $250,000 in City of Fresno funding through Measure C. That's our transportation sales tax measure in our county, of course, and then 500,000 total in the AB 617 Air District funds. So that's the total of $750,000 in the budget. So that increases the city's contribution up to that 250. So we'd put that in place, and then again, we've had lots of good discussion with both the truck rerouting subcommittee members and a few folks who wanted to volunteer some additional time to give us more detailed comment on the RFP. So again, the working group, the subcommittee, has asked that that RFP and the consultant contract, that both of those documents, both those items go through the subcommittee and community steering committee process, which, for us as a city, that's very doable. It does add a little bit of time, but it provides additional, engagement opportunity for everyone. So as shown here, March, again, our goal, we'd really like to reach consensus with the group. We'll need to schedule another meeting. And then by March, have truck rerouting subcommittee approval of that RFP for consultant services. Bring that to the scheduled community steering committee to all of you in April for that review and approval. And once that occurs, then the city of Fresno would release that RFP. May would, of course, be when they're due, they're evaluated, and then bring the consultant scope, fee, contract proposal back through that same committee process. If all goes well, then it would be June back with the subcommittee, July before this larger body as the community steering committee. And with that in hand, we'd schedule the consultant contract approval for city council in August. That would start the work. And that's a little over a year process as to what we'd anticipate. On the positive side, I note there was some discussion about, the pandemic conditions we're in and reduced traffic and such. And with vaccines, we're also thankful for moving forward. COVID numbers hopefully going down, then, we'd see some traffic volumes back up and a little bit more normalized study. So about a year into 2022, and ultimately, city council, we'd love to see ability to change some truck routes, change the ordinance, present back to the steering committee. On a couple other quick notes, just keeping our whole steering committee in the loop. A couple other items that would occur in parallel path between now and August. One is just the reimbursement agreement between the city and the Air District for the activities in this study. And then our subcommittee, we're excited about really with the health study, really breaking that out separately. There's some good consensus that a separate contract with a major university in the Valley, such as, for example, Fresno State, UC Merced, would be an excellent approach as opposed to just bringing on a consultant to do a report. There's a sense that there's a lot of knowledge base there, a lot of analysis that's been done. I want to give a lot of thanks and shout out, especially to Dr. Curry for meeting with our team. And so those would occur in parallel. And so thanks for accommodating me to provide this update early. Definitely folks are encouraged. If you'd like, mark your calendar for March 4th with Fresno City Council. as far as that approval, if that's something you'd like to participate in. And I'm available for any questions.
Awesome. So Scott, thank you so much for taking the time today to update us. If I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, at the last meeting, we got some news that we might not have the funding that we thought we would have from the city in terms of their contribution and your contribution for the truck reroute study. But it sounds like you've got a positive update that is, and it's not confirmed yet because the vote hasn't happened, but that there is a new potential source of funding that you will be voting on March 4th. And that is something that this committee can participate in terms of that committee meeting or that council meeting. And hopefully that moves forward with the successful vote. And then you also have a timeline for everyone to review that speaks to the new outline timeline for the truck reroute study and a potential partnership with the university partner on the health outcomes and impacts that we've been talking about for a few months. So I think I covered it, and I think, tell me if I missed anything, and I want to make sure Scott has a chance to answer any questions you have on this item, but it sounds like good news.
I have a question, sorry.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, hi, how are you doing? On the March 4th, I think I may have missed a truck meeting. I think I slept through my nap and I totally missed it. But I was under the assumption from the committee, and I know talking to some of the committee members outside of the meeting, that we may not commit the entire 500,000 to this truck study, and that we actually may pull some of that 500,000 of that funding back. So we actually have some funds to implement possible changes that need to be done in this process. So has this already been submitted for the agenda on the 4th, or are we going to be discussing this more in detail on the 22nd?
Lisa, that's a great question. I appreciate your involvement in this. You know, really, this just sets appropriations as that maximum amount. But I think you can see the process we'd go through. There's still plenty of time, you know, in the RFP to actually indicate a lower budget for the consultant when we release that. We can work together on that. And you know, you've heard me say before, just that sense that this is a very, very generous amount for that truck rerouting study. You know, this is as much as gosh, a whole like specific plan update, or even the Southeast Development Area environmental document. This is very healthy.
I understand it's a real rich allocation, but I also want you to understand, as far as part of the city, that the city has been basically negligent in not updating the truck route. And we have, as committee members that I've spoken to, have issue with maybe we should hold back some money for a possible implementation of some changes in route studies. You know, you can do a study, you can do a recommendation, but if you don't have the money to do the recommendations, you just have a piece of paper sitting on a shelf. And we're very action-oriented people. So we can take this conversation about the full allocation of the 500,000 from AB 617 to the committee and hash that out then and bring it back. And I thank you for finding the money in Measure C, because that clears up a lot of things. So thank you, Scott.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other questions or comments for Scott before he has to head out?
I actually have one more question. Can I get a copy of this timeline, since it's basically the first timeline I've seen from Scott regarding the publication of the RFP? And also too, is there any draft language for the RFP that we can see before the 22nd?
Actually, I believe, Lisa, Jill Gormley from my staff was waiting for some feedback from you. I'm not sure if you wanted to still provide, you'd mentioned wanting to go through and do kind of a full red line and a lot of edits. So we welcome, very, very much welcome those,
I submitted, on the first one, I submitted like a 5-pager.
Okay, we've got that.
Okay, so is there another draft that I've missed somewhere along the line?
No, I think then we had edited that, got a new version. So yes, we will be glad to get the latest draft out to the subcommittee.
Okay, if I can get a hard copy, and I'm meeting with Dolores from Arias's office on Friday, if you could send it to her, that would be great. That way you guys don't have to run around to get it to me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other committee CSC member comments for Scott related to this item? I don't see any, but because Scott is heading out, I do want to take a public comment. Laura, I do see your hand up, and so I want to acknowledge that I see your hand. And if you've got a question for Scott before he heads out, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, about the VOCs, the formaldehyde coming out, the garbage, we should separate the compostable food waste from the regular garbage. Because think how much it's really high in my monitor. I get a lot of formaldehyde VOC reading from rotten food. And the second thing is that not allowing is not allowing any more natural gas stoves. You can change the codes and only have electric stoves. That would get rid of some other pollutants too, like NOx. Thanks.
Thanks for that comment, Laura. I appreciate it. Greg Barfield, I see your hand is up.
I just want to say thank you to Scott. I know he's got to step off. I will take notes on his behalf if anything else comes up throughout this conversation. And I apologize for my tardiness of 20 minutes as I was on another meeting. So enjoy yourself, Scott. I got your back now.
Thank you, sir.
You're always welcome, Greg. Good to see you. And Eric Payne says, excellent job, Scott, to both of you and your team for getting us here. So really great developments since the last meeting. So appreciate the city for that update. And for those of you that are paying attention, we took that agenda item out of order. But it looks like Greg will be able to answer questions on Scott's behalf, even though he has to step away. And we will continue with the rest of our agenda as planned, as the agenda outlined. Excellent, thank you all. It looks like, Heather, that we're back on YouTube. So for those of you just joining us on social, good to see you. And we are moving into our regular agenda back to what was originally slated to be the first item, which is the annual planning approach. So we did have a great intro from our community co-host, Ed, who talked a little bit about the 2021 planning process and why it's important. And you heard, I think in the last meeting and also toward the end of last year, that the CSC really did want to have an aligned strategy. You wanted to make sure that the SERP and the implementation tactics were really clear and that everyone really felt like we were moving in the right direction together, given that this is a 5-year process. So I'm going to ask my colleagues, Kim and Hannah, to pull up the PowerPoint that speaks to the 2021 kind of planning discussions. And we wanted to talk about how we're going to approach this planning process. So on the slide right now, you should be seeing on the screen is how we'd like to explore the planning process and how to do it in a way that works on Zoom with 60 to 70 people every meeting. We want to talk a little bit about what's working well and suggestions that you have for improvement in the 3 areas that are on the screen: administration, reporting and tracking, and the SERP strategies. These are the major buckets that we've talked to some of the community members about how this CSC operates and the goals for your SERP implementation. So our goal, as a CSC, is to really reduce emissions, but it's important for us to make sure that the overall process of this committee is working well so that we can make sure that the work is getting done productively, that it's being done efficiently, and that you understand it and are happy with the process. So given that we're doing this for 5 years, every year it's good to kind of weigh in, see how we're doing, and make sure that we're running as smoothly as we can. This next slide shows you what we want to accomplish. So anytime you start a planning process, it is really important to make sure that everyone agrees on what you want to get done. This slide actually shows you what we think you want to have done at the end of the planning. And this is based on the conversations we've had with you, small group conversations, the full CSC, and what we discussed at the last meeting. So our outcomes for the planning process are on the boxes that are noted on your screen. From left to right, top to bottom, we want to refine any of the administrative things that need to be adjusted. We definitely want this group to agree on the reporting process. see how you're going to track metrics. We need to come to an agreement about the approach for prioritizing the CERP measures. That's the big meat of the work that you're all doing together. We want to make sure we get that right. And then we also want to make sure we have a list of the CERP measures as they're prioritized for 2021. Because it's a 5-year process, you can't do everything all at once. What are we doing this year? The other thing that we want to do is we want to leave some time and we want to leave some space for you to discuss some other activities you might want to accomplish this year so that you have some time to breathe and think about your definition of success. You know, it's really important to agree on how you measure and track that success so that at the end of this year, you can say that you successfully accomplished your goals. So really talking about that, naming that, spending a little bit of time framing that at the beginning of the year will really help us clarify our approach so we don't show up at the end of the year thinking that we didn't quite have clear direction. So the next slide is going to show you this proposed planning schedule. There we go. Okay, so if we start today, we think we can do this in 4 meetings. We start by discussing the administration topics, which are going to be discussed today. And then we use the next meeting to talk about reporting and tracking and how you want to approach the CERP prioritization. And then we can use the next 1 or 2 meetings to prioritize the CERP measures. And then you're done with the planning and you move into implementation with the adjustments that you recommended. So I want to stop there and just get a pulse from the committee about this approach. You know, this is the approach that resonated with the residents and the CSC members that were in the agenda setting meeting last week and the before last month's meeting. But we want to make sure that this works for any of you and that if you have any questions or concerns about the outcomes or the schedule, now's a great time to just kind of weigh in and tell us if we've got this right, because we're going to start this today and I'd love to make sure we're on the right track. So I want to get some thoughts from our Spanish line, our residents, and any other CSC thoughts. So I'm going to make sure that I don't see anything here. Does anybody have any specific comments right now about whether we're on the right track, we're feeling good? Blue hand up if you'd like to speak. Spanish line, we'll start with you. Are we on the right track in terms of our approach for the planning? Or is there anything else that we think we need to cover to make this a useful process for you? Seeing no hands, we'll move to the regular CSC and any specifically residents if you've got any feedback. If you don't have anything to say, but you do have a computer, give us a thumbs up if you think we're doing good because we're going to keep moving. Give us a thumbs up if you feel like we're on the right track and we've covered everything that you said you wanted to cover because we're going to start it today.
Erika, I do have a question.
Hi, Naomi. Nice hat. Ed, come on, Ed. She's got a hat. Jamie's got a hat. Naomi, go ahead.
So what is happening after today? Are we confirming that we agree with this plan, and then we're gonna try to schedule right away the first meeting, or what's the process?
No, we're doing it today. So what we wanted to do, because we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting, this matches up with the approach you guys wanted to take. So we wanted you to just remind, for those of you that weren't able to participate in last month's meeting, remind everybody about the approach, how we were going to structure it, and we were going to start. Meeting number 1 starts today, and then meeting number 2 will start, you know, whenever you guys want to schedule it. If it's a special meeting, it's a special meeting. 3 and 4 can be along the schedule of the CSC meetings or in a special format. So you get to decide, but we're going to start number 1 today, and we think we can get through the administration topics today. Did that answer your question? Awesome. I see Ed's hat now. Everyone take a look at Ed and Naimeen, and even Jamie has a fun hat on. This is going to be a fun meeting. We can do serious work and still have a fun meeting. So I appreciate everyone with the nice headwear. Lisa, I see your hand.
Yeah, are you going to go into any sort of depth of what are the overarching goals in administration, since I don't have a list of the 53 projects that we have, so we can, you know, kind of group them together, and what exactly administration looks like from the district side versus what we're expecting? Because I mean, when you're talking administration, to me, I want to see staffing levels, I want to see budgets, I want to see timelines, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll give you a download on what administration means to what it meant to the kind of the planning committee that was in the last meeting and what we brought today. It doesn't cover everything that you mentioned, but it certainly has the opportunity to cover quite a few things related to administration of the committee. So with that in mind, why don't I just show you the next slide and we'll talk about what administration is and what we've bucketed as, and then anything that's not in it, we'll flag it.
Let me just tell you something. The way I can read this on this, it's really fine print. So when you guys throw up, you know, these presentations and I don't get to see them beforehand to actually read them and think about them, I can't agree to anything tonight. I'll tell you that right now.
That's okay. We don't actually have to agree. It's really just kind of a brainstorm about things that are working well and are not working well. We can certainly talk to the Air District about providing additional opportunities throughout the course of this planning to throw in additional ideas or concepts for those of you that need a little more time to think about it. And to your point, Lisa, we're actually going to do some live notes and real-time discussions. So don't feel pressure to make any decisions. It's not that kind of meeting. It's really just an opportunity to weigh in on what's working for you and what's not working for you in some key areas. We're just presenting the ideas today. The Spanish speakers do have some information in advance and translated, but we want to be mindful that over the 4 meetings that we just outlined, there's plenty of time for you to think about it, weigh in, and provide additional context. So I hear you saying you're not.
You also need to understand that, you know, with small writing like this on a screen, that I do have an ADA request out. So if you want my comments on it, you need to get me this paper. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think we can arrange that. That's absolutely something that we'll work with the Air District on to make sure everybody's got a copy of it. And when I share my screen and do the notes, I'll check back with you to make sure that we make it as big as possible. So I'll be able to make the screen even bigger.
Yeah, because had I known earlier in the day, Jamie could have printed this off and drop it off at my house, or, you know, at least a couple of days before, you know, just that, you know, that's all my pet peeve. But anyway, go ahead.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so for those of you that are seeing the screen and can see it, well, we're going to talk about what's working well and what's not working well. We're also going to talk about, you know, kind of by bucket. So you're going to see on the screen right now that there are 5 different buckets that we think administration is. We're going to start by explaining the topic, and we're going to take some live notes on the screen. So to Lisa's point, you know, if this is a little hard for you to read, you're actually going to see it in a little bit bigger format, and you'll be able to hear from us, and we'll be able to hear from you, and we'll take the notes and we'll show it on the screen. And then Marcella with the Air District is going to take some live notes in Spanish so that when we're all done, our Spanish speakers can also see everyone's comments. One quick disclaimer for you all. We are doing this over Zoom. This is not easy, and we're going to thank you in advance for your patience because it's going to be a little bit of a toggle back and forth. We would love to be doing this in person with you and doing this on flip charts and, you know, seeing everyone's scribbly writing, but I know that that's not possible, and so we appreciate your support and your flexibility as we work through that. And then again, you know, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to weigh in. So feel free to connect with your Zoom hand, your blue hand, and feel free, especially if you haven't talked in a while and you're a resident and you just want to weigh in, please do. Hi. Do we have a question from our Spanish line or a comment? Okay. I think we are good. So moving forward, these are a couple of things. Oh, we're not being able to hear. Okay. We've got some interpretation channel.
Isabel, ¿sí nos escucha en español?
Ahora sí estoy escuchando, no, ya no se escucha nada.
Ok, es que ahorita no estaba diciendo nada. ¿Sí?
Sí, sí te escucho.
Okay, we got it figured out. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for letting us know. All right, as we said, we're working through all the little glitches that happen with technology, and I appreciate everyone's patience while we do that, especially those on the Spanish line. So let's go over these boxes really quickly. So the first topic that we're going to cover, and that's today's main planning topic, is administration. And we think that includes a couple of things. And so to keep us focused, we tried to organize this into some main areas that fall under administration based on some of the feedback we've heard, some of the comments in the committee meetings and the subcommittee meetings. These are the big things: CSC meetings, subcommittees, notifications and updates, the translation, interpretation, and access, like we're seeing and experiencing now, and then the membership. And then there's some subheads beneath each one. We're going to take them box by box. We're going to take notes on what's working well and what can use improvement. And we've got about 45 minutes to cover all of these boxes. And so to make this work, we're going to use the chat box. We're going to use the blue hands. We're going to use the, everyone's going to have an opportunity to speak up. And Hannah, Kim, and I are going to work together to monitor the chat, monitor the blue hands, and make sure we don't miss anyone. And as I mentioned, we're going to take notes live in real time so you can see what's there. And then obviously you'll have an opportunity to add things to these notes in between meetings if you need to, and also that these will be recorded for your administrative record for future discussion and to make sure we stay on track with those goals. So I'm going to ask those of you to pull the share screen down. I'm going to see if there are any questions before we get going, and then I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start talking about the topics under administration. Any questions before we start this process? So far, I see nothing. Hannah and Kim, keep me honest. I'm about to share my screen with all of you, and we're going to take notes, and we're going to start box by box. And we can spend as much time or as little time on each of these items as you want to. We just wanted to get you kind of thinking about what we envisioned would be important discussion items to say are going well, that you want to continue and do more of, or that need a little refinement. All right, so moving into our notes. The first topic, and I hope you can all see this, please give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen that says CSC meetings. I see you, Naimeen, thank you so much. All right, so we are going to talk about what's working well and what's not working well, maybe some suggestions for 2021 under the category of CSC meetings. So this could be anything from an agenda item, how the agendas are structured, the topics you talk about, the time allocations, how much time we've got for each meeting, too long, too short, how the technology works, right? We all have some pros and cons on that. Frequency of meetings, the structure of our meetings, how people interact, and how we communicate in our code of conduct. So I will ask Hannah and Kim, since I can't see everyone, to be kind of my facilitator on this one. And if you've got any blue hands, please call on those, Hannah or Kim, and then I'll take notes on what's working well and what's not working well, what needs a little refinement.
Will do, Erica. We're just waiting for some hands.
No worries. What do you guys think works well about our meetings?
We do have a hand from
first hand.
Lisa, go ahead. Thank you for raising the hand.
Well, the first thing that jumps out to me is, what the heck are you talking about? Some code of conduct. That's the first question. The second is, your presentations are, all nice and dandy and all, but I think that what, as volunteers and committee members that we need to really have more time to have discussions and to flesh out what the issues are and to really define where we're going and what we really want, and also to ensure that the direction that we're going is the direction that the committee and the community wants. And as by my different tone throughout the last couple of years is, it gets really frustrating when you have to continually ask for the same information over and over and over again, and it then becomes 6 months, a year, then somebody at the district says it's a bright idea and it's a great idea and let's roll with it. So, I think that part of it needs to be more actively listening and discussion among the committee members of where we're going, finding the problems, finding the solutions, and moving forward. And what's the deal with the code of conduct?
Oh, sure. So, I think with any committee, first of all, let me make sure I documented what you said, and then I'll answer the code of conduct question. So more time for discussion in the agendas, active listening and discussion among the committee members about kind of how things are going and where you'd like to move forward. And I think part of that is maybe even this planning exercise we're going through for the next couple of meetings. But I want to be mindful that I've gotten it.
It's not only the committee, but it's actively listening from the district. Because sometimes, you know, we keep coming back and we keep asking the same thing over and over again. Look at the, you know, my prime example is from the very beginning. Look at the nightmare and look how many months we wasted defining the map because people chose not to listen to the committee and the community. And that sort of thing has been very habitual. That's my example. Thank you. Thanks
for that. I think I have it. If I don't have it, feel free to type in the chat or hey, raise your hand again, and I'm happy to reply. To the point of code of conduct. So one of the things that most committees of this size certainly have, and some of the other AB 617 committees have, is an approach for how you will operate. We talk about it in the context of step up, step back, and how you might engage with one another. Your rules of engagement, right? You respect everyone's lived experience, those kinds of mores. We wanted to understand how everyone feels about those activities and whether or not those are clear enough and refined for you all. Just an administrative process that most committees and CSC type structures include. So it falls under the category of the CSC meeting. And if you guys like the way that that the meetings are being structured to allow for that conduct to be clear.
Ivanka, I see your hand, and we're going to circle to you in just a moment. Let me check back with Ed. Ed, I want to make sure we didn't miss your hand because you had your hand earlier.
Yeah.
Looks like Naimeen has one too.
I just had some thoughts. You know, I so much appreciate the fact that we're looking at these things, but I do have concerns that there have been times when we have questioned ourselves into the weeds and left feelings of distrust in some cases. I want to be careful about that. I want everybody to have their say, but everyone having their say doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to go their way. And we need to be careful about that. The only other piece that I had is the code of conduct is, I think, important. And I think we need to look at talking to each other and not at each other ultimately. So just my comments for the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you. And then you mentioned that you want to make sure that, you know, there's an understanding, clear understanding about hearing one another, but not necessarily always getting your way, right?
Correct.
Perfect.
And next we have Ivanka.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this would go under this category of administration. Just when residents, we saw a little bit of improvement on this when there are concerns that are brought up, especially when they're coming from the residents, even if it's not fit directly into that specific piece that we are talking about. If you say you're going to get back to the residents, or just that follow through, because whether it sounds like it's related or not, it wouldn't have been brought up if it were not a priority. And so just really wanting to see follow up and just not like a placating of I heard you, but then not hear you. And even if it's not that same night that it's brought up, if there's research needed, that's fine, but just bring it back around.
Perfect. And I want to do two things. One, I want to make sure everyone can see my screen. Lisa, in particular, you, because you did mention that you had some challenges seeing, so I want to make sure it's big enough. And then I also wanted to acknowledge Ivanka's comment and make sure that I reflected it well in the bullet.
And Erica Naimeen is next. I'm not sure that her hand is working, so I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that and that she's up next.
Yeah,
hey,
it's not working, so I raised my physical hand.
I'll make sure to look for you.
So we can see it. Okay, so I'll give you something for the working well, so you don't feel that pobrecita columna. I think that I like the fact that we now have prep meetings to even talk about the agenda, and the agenda is not something that is imposed on us. That's an improvement. However, I agree with the comment that Lisa made that we still are packing those agendas. So I think we need to be more mindful as of what is realistic. It's rather better that to have less items and have more time for discussion than just rush. I do have another comment, and I do not know if it goes here or where, but I think that the other problem that we have is that in between monthly meetings, there's not a lot of action happening. There has to be more progress in and have more delegation of who's going to do what in between meetings, because we come next month and not only we don't get this information that we asked last month for 2-3 months ago, but we're in this, what is the progress? Oh, same, then why are we meeting? So I think that there has to be a way of moving things forward in a more efficient way.
Thank you for that. And I think I reflected it. I will continue to add to it. I want to acknowledge that we're talking about agendas. We've talked the topics for the agendas. I'm not seeing any comments on that yet. Feel free to weigh in on those. It sounds like the time allocations are a little short. We need a little more time to discuss, so not such a packed agenda. So that might mean that some topics aren't covered every meeting, or they're not given the same amount of time. Feel free to talk about any of the other things underneath this sub bullet of CSC meetings. And of course, if something's working well, flag that too, to make sure the Air District gets kudos, and for this CSC gets kudos for all the work you guys are doing. That's things that are working well for you. I also want to make sure our Spanish participants have a chance to check in as well. Kim, you heard someone?
I was just going to say we have, I wanted to acknowledge in the chat that Eric Payne said that the facilitation team does a good job at listening to the committee and stakeholders, but he also would like to lift up the demands of service on subcommittees that CSC representatives have offered thoughtful feedback and moving the Air District towards building solutions. Okay, so if I'm hearing that correctly, that the subcommittee meetings need additional kind of maybe more structure? Is that how I should? Yeah, well, you said lift up the demands of service on those subcommittees, so yeah.
Okay. And there is a section on subcommittees, which I'm going to jump to in a second. It looks like we might be moving towards another box. We're making good progress. May need additional revision to lift up community voicing. Okay, I'm going to refine that one. I'm going to highlight it from my own notes so that I can make sure that I connect it to the chat, Eric, and that I got it right. Any other specific comments on this section before we move to our next box?
Erica, we do have 2 hands from Kimberly, Lisa, and then Ed. It's 3 hands now, and we need to circle to the Spanish-speaking participants as well.
Great.
Kimberly?
Just a suggestion. I would like to see our co-hosts have more of a role instead of just saying, hi, thank you for coming to the meeting, and then thank you, I'm the co-host this time, and then closing out the meeting and thanking everyone for their participation. I would like to see the co-hosts actually have more of a role, like giving them a section of the agenda to be able to introduce to us in those lines, something like that, but have more of a role just of saying that our name is co-host on the agenda.
Good suggestion. Who's next?
Lisa and then Ed.
One of the things under this section I was thinking about is the last couple of meetings I've always asked, what is the membership level? How many people out of the entire committee are in attendance? So I think a level of accountability as far as following through with the attendance and actually announcing, what is our attendance level, at each meeting. Because, I find it very interesting that at some of these meetings, we almost have as much staff as we have committee members. And that tells me somewhere in the back of my mind, we're burning through, you know, AB 617 money on overtime. That's the first thing that comes in my mind. And the second is the numerous times throughout the last year, 2 years, in which I've asked for the phone list so I can actually reach out to people to see why they're not showing up and to talk to them on a one-to-one committee member to committee member about their participation in coming back. So that is of concern to me, is accountability of attendance. And also I think we should announce it at every meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. I made a note of it. I put it in green because there is a box at the bottom, a different slide that we're going to talk about membership. And I think your comment might go there. So I'm going to flag it and then move it. And that's why it's highlighted. I do think that you mentioned something about committee calls. So maybe CSC contact. I don't know where that fits in. So I'm just going to flag it here for fellow members. Okay. All right. I think we might be, Hannah, tell me if we've got any other hands for this item. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next box.
Yes, we have a hand from Ed, and we have another comment from the chat box that we're going to go add to the list. And we're going to circle to our Spanish speaking participants before moving to the next box. Ed?
Excellent.
Thank you. I wanted to say, I agree with Kimberly. I think that it would be nice to see the community co-hosts pick up a part of the meeting to just make sure that it is a resident, community participatory event. And then additionally, oftentimes in meetings like this, when the meeting is concluded, we develop a set of action items. These are the things that we're going to follow up on. And I'd like to recommend that we, Lisa's brought forward some things she'd like to have. Those action items, at least have some kind of an answer related to the follow-up of those things. It's, maybe yes, no, it might not even be an answer that, everybody likes, but we have made the effort to address it and build the trust between everyone as we move forward.
Great, thank you. I have that. He has clearly delineated action items after each meeting and then, follow through.
And I do see a hand from Estella on our
Excellent, Estella.
Lo que quería decir es que sí estaba bien todo, nomás que si me podría mandar por favor en correo electrónico la link del Zoom. Pero sí está bien todo. Para mí sí me gustaría la link del Zoom, nada más.
¿Cuál link de Zoom quiere o necesita?
Como esta link de esta reunión no me la mandaron por correo.
Oh, okay. She said everything sounds okay. She just wants the link to the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to try to forward that to her right now.
Oh, just for tonight's meeting?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great.
And Erica,
I know that you're, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have one thing that's working well in the chat that we want to capture from Janet Gardner, saying that these meetings have helped to connect businesses in the community to other community groups and residents. So there's good mutual work being done.
Great. And then Maricela, I'm going to ask you when you're ready to show your screen, if you are ready for our Spanish speakers. I'm going to type up this last one. If you're not ready, we can do it when you are.
Yeah, I should be. I think I just need to capture that last one that you're doing right now. And I think that's about it. And then on that second one for your suggestions for 2021, we didn't finish that second bullet point. So mine is not going to be completed either. So I wasn't sure we needed to complete that one.
Let me do this. Let's see, clarity and agreement on the direction for the CSC. I think that might be.
Erica, another comment from the chat, and I'm not sure if it goes into this category, but from Kimberly, we need more accountability and transparency from the Air District and CARB. So more accountability and transparency.
Okay, we can put it in here, and if it does end up going in somewhere else, I'll flag it that we might need to move it.
And I do see a hand from Isabel.
Great.
Sí, tengo
You guys are getting the hang of it.
We're throwing a lot at you, Erica.
I love it.
Ok, a mí lo que me gustaría más es mirar o que nos dieran información cómo está reduciendo la contaminación aquí en el área.
Okay, she would just like more information on how much pollution we're actually reducing or minimizing in her community.
Got it. And I think that's going to go in a different box. So I'm putting it in here and I'm putting it in green in case it needs to be reassigned. But this is maybe a good segue to showing what Mari's done and then going to the next box. So more information about reductions, about air pollution and reductions.
Okay, gracias.
All right, so I'm going to stop share and then I'm going to let Mari share so that our Spanish speakers can see what has been shown and done in Spanish. And now you guys have the hang of it. We can probably go a little more quickly, but I did want to flag for you all that we're trying to do this simultaneously, and you see how bad of typers I can be sometimes, but I appreciate all the feedback you've given so far.
And can we see that screen? ¿Se puede ver el documento?
Yes.
Okay.
It looks good. Good job, Mari. Thank you for that simultaneous.
No problem. Y si ustedes, Isabel, Lilia y Estela, no sé si necesitan alguna más información, pero ahorita lo que se estaba presentando en inglés, ahorita ya he traducido todo y está aquí para ustedes para que lo puedan revisar. Si tienen una pregunta o quieren agregar, me pueden decir ahorita en este momento. I'm giving them some time to review that and provide any comments if they need to.
Thank you.
Yo no tengo ninguna pregunta.
Okay.
Yo sí tengo una pregunta.
Sí, Lilia, siga.
Sí, mira, regularmente yo comparto todo lo que ustedes ponen, lo estaba escribiendo, pero es más fácil decirlo que escribirlo, así que voy a borrar mi comentario antes de mandarlo.
Okay.
Solamente quiero que sepan que regularmente a mí me gusta siempre compartir lo que ustedes ponen. Hablando ahorita con Isabel, lo que dijo es muy importante que regularicemos el aire contaminado que está en nuestras áreas, principalmente en el triángulo que estamos trabajando. Entonces, si no tenemos esa información nosotros, ¿cómo vamos a saber? Ahorita estamos con la contaminación ambiente de todas partes. Yo me gusta estar mirando mi teléfono, actualizarlo, para estar mirando regularmente cómo está el aire para poder salir a caminar si es que se puede. Entonces, si no sabemos cómo están regularizando ustedes ese aire y no nos lo comparten, ¿cómo vamos a saber? Entonces, sería importante que lo pusieran constantemente en su página de Facebook, porque a mí me encanta compartir esa información porque es algo que nos beneficia a las personas, principalmente si son enfermas de asma o tienen alguna enfermedad crónica. Entonces, sería importante que tuvieran esos al día para poder estar al tanto. Como repito, no sé si lo tengan o tengan mucha información o me la pierda, porque me encanta compartirlo de ustedes.
Perfecto. Ahorita se los voy a decir a ellos. Okay, so that was Lilia, and she likes to share our information on Facebook, especially in her community groups. And she also commented that she really appreciates Isabel's comment because you know, it is very important for their community, especially in that triangle area, to know where air pollution is coming from. And if they are minimizing air pollution, you know, how is it improving? How is the district regulating this stuff? And then because it's important for those community members who might have asthma or allergies or other chronic conditions to know what the current air quality is. So if we could, if the air district could share all of this information on Facebook on a day-to-day basis, they'd greatly appreciate it, because then she can share that to her community groups and get the information out there to other members as well.
I think I've got it. That's a great comment. Thank you for that. I went ahead and added it into the English version. If you can add it to the Spanish version, Mari. And I just added that it's important to share on Facebook it may be important for the Air District to share on Facebook so that the CSC can push out to networks.
Okay. ¿Algún otro comentario en español antes de que quite mi pantalla y dejo que Erica muestre su pantalla de nuevo? Okay, doesn't look like we have any others, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
Great. All right, guys, so you see how the process is working. I want to thank you for flagging it, every edit in the chat. I think Hannah and Tim are showing those. I'm seeing them too. Spanish language is coming right after, so they have a chance to review it. I do think that we can probably move forward a little bit faster with the remaining items, but I do see a hand from Brian Moore before we go to the next box.
Oh, thanks, Erica. This is Brian from CARB. So I just want to respond to Kim and the whole CSC. If they have any specific asks about transparency with CARB, like budget, staffing, inventories, how we do any of our technical analysis, please email me. And or we can set up a call, or I can try to answer those questions for them. So I'll put my email in the chat right now. And that is it. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Erica?
Yeah.
Before we move to the next box, let's make sure that our list accurately reflects Janet's comment. So her comment was that these committee meetings have connected some business to community and community groups. This has led to mutual work being accomplished outside of the SERP plans. So Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm interpreting that these meetings and the committee work has created some additional connections and partnerships in the community and benefiting community as a whole. I think that's the category of what's working well. Please give us thumbs up if we captured that correctly, or unmute yourself and let us know.
Yeah, this is Janet. Yeah, it's made some connections where we are making improvements just as we go along, as working with community groups. So that's a positive outcome.
We like positive outcomes as well as suggestions. Thank you for that. And thank you for making sure we got it right. We can go in and make additional text changes as needed in real time. All right, let's keep moving and let's go as quickly as possible to get to the next boxes. You see how it works. We're going to get a little faster. Our next box to cover is subcommittees. And some things, you talked about subcommittees in the last kind of section, but how are the subcommittee topics, the frequency of the meetings, the times of the meetings? Are your outcomes clear? Do you like the structure? We already had one comment about structure. How's the engagement? Any thoughts that are things that are working well or not working well at the subcommittee?
Nayamin has her hand up. Oh, go ahead.
It's the follow-up of my comment, a previous comment. I think we need to have more work done in between meetings. And sometimes I think that a roadblock has been that we have to wait. I mean, I know it's good to have being inclusive and, you know, wait until everybody responds to a call, but sometimes that's just paralyzing, you know? So I think that, you know, if we can make a point of whomever is ready to take on this, let's just get it moving. It's gonna make us see more progress rather than waiting just to even have a date for a meeting, let alone for an action. And that we need more meetings, because right now we just have 2 that are working on 2 out of the 50 SERP strategies. So this, at this pace, we are never gonna be done.
Thank you for that.
And next we have Ed Ward and then Lilia from the Spanish line.
Excellent.
Oh, Ed, you're on mute.
I really like the subcommittee process, and I think it's real valuable, and I happen to agree. We'll be forever if we're not careful, but I think we can make the process even better by possibly picking people that have passion for the particular subject, and have them be the, maybe even for a whole year, be the facilitator or the host of that particular subcommittee. And here, I want to use this as an example. Naimeen essentially led the Tree Fresno meeting earlier this week, and she did a fantastic job. She knew more than anyone else in the process, and she helped move the meeting quick. And if we could set that kind of standard, I think we could get moving quicker. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I think I reflected that in the chat or in the notes. And if I didn't, just ping me and we'll fix it. Good suggestions. And Naimeen did an awesome job yesterday. Are there any other comments?
Yes, Lilia and then Lisa.
Sí, nuevamente aquí yo, lamentablemente el día de ayer miré que tuvieron la junta del subcomité, me tuve que conectar con Marisela. Lamentablemente iba saliendo del trabajo. No es que no tengamos pasión, la pasión la tenemos, solamente que a veces el horario no se concuerda con nuestros trabajos y habituales, entonces tenemos que concordar también. A mí me favorecen estas reuniones, principalmente en la tarde a estas horas. Ya en el transcurso del día, lamentablemente muchos tenemos ocupaciones de trabajo laborales, ya sea en la casa o en el trabajo, entonces en este momento tenemos más posibilidad de estar en las reuniones y estar participando. La pasión la tenemos porque queremos los cambios. Estamos trabajando por nuestra comunidad. Independientemente con el intensivo que nos daban o nos dan, lo hacíamos porque nos interesan los cambios en nuestra comunidad. Así es que si es un poquito del subcomité, ponerlo un poquito más tarde, yo estaría presente también. Y yo pienso que muchas de las compañeras también estaríamos presentes. Pero el horario a veces no es tan flexible para nosotros cuando tenemos unas obligaciones como ama de casa o como persona que trabaja también.
Lilia's comments are referring to like she had to call me yesterday to because she was had a busy schedule and she wasn't able to participate in the subcommittee meeting. But for the future, what she would like to do is maybe if we do have any subcommittee meetings to basically have them in the evenings because there are other responsibilities that some of her and her colleagues do their volunteer work or their homemakers. So it's really hard for them to really participate, even though they would like to, and they're very passionate about their community. But if we could possibly if we are going to consider more subcommittees, to have them in the evening so that they can actually have time to participate and be more active.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really important comment.
Okay, Lisa.
I want to thank Lilia for that comment, because I always think that the meetings are going to be in the early evening, and sometimes when you have them in the afternoon, I actually am taking a nap and totally sleep through them. So I agree with her. I have things I have to do during my day. Subcommittee, here is my laundry list. Are you ready? I hope you can type fast. I think that there needs to be a massive, ready? There needs to be a Gantt chart of what we're doing, when we're doing it, for the 53 things that we're doing. We need that timeline desperately, not in the current form that it is, because it still isn't showing us what we need to do on a visual, like a calendar. Each subcommittee should also include a timeline of activities from conception all the way to completion and implementation. Each committee should also include a budget for that task that we're doing of the 53. And it should also include the staff. The district staff should also be included in that. We should know how many staff people are being assigned, how many PYs are being assigned, because that takes a certain percentage of the bigger pot of money. So we need to be aware of at what point are we going to be running out of staff funding, because even tonight, how many staff do we have in comparison to how many committee members? Then we also need to do task assignments. How do we break down this big boulder that we have? And
really good. Oh, then
I'm not done.
Keep going.
And
keep on going. I got you.
We also have to have dedicated staff, one dedicated staff person that will help from start to finish with that one thing, because it can't always be Jamie.
Do you mean as it relates to the SERP or a subcommittee itself, like one staff person for the subcommittee, or is it just general SERP implementation?
Who is the point person for everything? They're the catch-all person.
Okay.
That if we have a question, that is the person to go to versus, I don't know, or, you know, because it's easier if you have a question and if somebody doesn't know, that person can say, be accountable for that question from the air district and then get back to us versus saying, well, we gave it to that person and there's no follow through and it's 6 months later and you have me pissed off at a meeting. Then we also need agency accountability as far as follow through, both from the air district, the city, the county, and CARB.
Got it. I feel like that comment, oh, keep going.
And faster response time, because if you think about this, we asked for like this sort of information like what 4 months ago, and we're on the verge of going into month 3. That's all. It's just, this is so molasses. It's the speed of molasses, and it's driving me crazy because it ain't a cookie.
Thank you for that. I'm highlighting these in green in case they need to go somewhere else or in case we've covered them. I think some of it was a little bit addressed in the administration. We'll consolidate those at the end of notes, but I just wanted to flag it. Thank you for those. They may not stay in this section under subcommittees, but they will get placed in this overall grid.
Well,
Kim and Hannah?
I think it's kind of important because you're looking at, you know, there's a $500,000 budget for the truck route. You know, we have to look at what are we really spending? What are we going to really give to the city? What are we going to look at implementation? We need, you know, to flesh that all out. We need staff that is definitely, you know, anyway. All right.
You're absolutely right. This one I actually accidentally highlighted in green, but it belongs squarely in the subcommittee box. The one I'm thinking of is more the global. It may get moved, but it's the comment is noted, definitely there. I think I have it here. If there's anything not accurate, let me know and we will make an adjustment. Kim and Hannah, who else we got?
We don't have anything in the chat right now, and I'm not seeing any hands, but maybe we can circle back to our Spanish-speaking participants and give people a minute.
Erica, can I have you go back down, sorry, on the screen, so I can finish my comments in Spanish?
Sorry, Mari.
That's okay,
Scrolling,
thank you.
Scrolling. Yeah, no problem. Tell me when you're ready to share your screen, and I gladly will stop sharing mine, and then we'll swap to the next box. You guys are doing great. Start thinking about the next boxes, which are, give me 2 seconds just to give everybody mentally their head right. Mari, don't change it yet. 1 second. Notifications and updates, what you're getting and when you're getting those notifications and updates are the next topic for discussion. So Mari's gonna do a final translation. We're gonna show the Spanish slide, and then we're gonna go to notification and updates. So feedback that you have on those would be great.
And then maybe we could just ask them, I know that I cut them off if they did have any comments in Spanish. Si alguien tiene comentario en español, lo podría hacer en este momento, por favor, antes de que muestre la pantalla yo.
And Erica, in the meantime, Ed does have a suggestion that if we do move subcommittee meetings to the evening, if we can have them be early evening and keep them to just an hour.
Got it. Please don't hold my bad typing against me. Thank goodness for spell check. And you get to see in real time how good or bad I am at this and how fast or slow I am at this with all the world watching, right?
No judgment.
No judgments in this meeting today. All right, Mari, do you see what you need, or do I need to scroll anywhere for you?
I think I'm gonna go ahead and just share what I have right now. If you're ready.
Awesome. I'm ready for you.
Ok, y esta es la segunda página de lo que estábamos comentando en este momento. Si tienen alguna pregunta, traté de, estábamos hablando un poquito más rápido y teníamos comentarios en español, so no sé si a lo mejor fallé uno o dos, pero creo que está aquí la mayoría de lo que se comentó en este momento. Si alguien tiene una pregunta o comentario, lo puede hacer ahorita en este momento en español. Y hay mucha información, so disculpen que está un poco difícil de leerlo. ¿Algún comentario de ustedes? Estela, Lilia, Isabel.
Yo por ahora no.
Ok, gracias.
No, está bien.
Okay. I don't think we have any further questions, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this moment then.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. We're doing great. You're making really good progress, and we're going to speed up even more because I think you're going to have fewer comments on these couple items if possible, but we got a little bit of time. We've got about 10 to 12 minutes to do these last few items. So let me share my screen again, and we're going to talk about notifications and updates. These are the calls, the emails, the printed and mailed updates, the doodle polls. How are those working for you? Do you feel like those work well? What's working well? What do you want to keep? What's not working well? What's maybe not a good use of time? What could be done differently to make this process and your information received better? There's maybe some comments you made in a previous section. If I highlighted it, I can move it down. So don't have to repeat that one if you guys needed something adjusted in a previous comment.
Okay, Erica, I do see a hand from Keith and then followed by Lisa.
Hi, Keith.
Hello. I just wanted to say, sometimes I get the emails or the information regarding the meetings the day of or the day before. Now, since I'm a member of the public, you know, I understand the committee comes first, but I doubt that the committee gets it the same day as the meeting. And, you know, I need that sometimes in order to plan ahead. And sometimes on the subcommittee meetings, I don't get the notification at all. So as a member of the public, I would like to get those.
Increase the, or longer turnaround time, longer advance notice for materials and updates. And then you mentioned something, Keith, about the subcommittees. You're saying that you're not receiving any of the agendas, or what information specifically on the subcommittees are you not getting, or do you even know?
Yeah, agendas and notifications of the meeting.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For subcommittees at all. Okay. Any additional hands? I know I thought I heard one more hand. Lisa.
Well, it goes back to the attendance, but oh goodness, I forgot to write it down. Are people being called? I don't think I've ever once got called about a meeting.
I think the Air District does make quite a few calls to certain members. I'll confirm that with the Air District team that's on the line, but I do believe that calls are made, emails are sent, things are dropped off at houses.
Well, that's because I live down the block and she's hoping I'm going to feed her.
I'm waiting.
Not you, Lisa.
She's hoping for those tamales.
Lisa, we all are. We are waiting for those deliveries, Lisa. That is important to us.
Because first off, I don't get calls, but I'm just wondering about those that are absent, that those aren't attending. Are they getting calls and feedback? Because, you know, I've been asking for more than a year and I really haven't got any sort of feedback. And I actually would like to know how many people have dropped off and how many vacancies there actually are at this time. So, you know, people on the committee could actually possibly go out and recruit. as well as how many of us don't have backups? Because I know I don't, but that would be interesting to know, the demographics of, how many people have delegated their positions to other people in lieu of absences and such. So, because I'm really concerned that we're going to fall under a 50% attendance for the committee, and that speaks to, are we really representing our community at that point? Thank you.
Thanks for that comment. I flagged it in green because there's a box for membership that I think I'm going to drop those boxes into. Just giving you a heads up and Mari a heads up because she's translating. Any additional questions, comments, Kim and Hannah? Help me out.
Yes.
Can I do the backup?
Two chat comments that people like the doodle poll. So that's working well. And then we do have a comment that this is a great example of these display slides would have been good to have beforehand. So people could have gotten to thinking about it. And that when they're doing it on the spot, it's, little time for thought.
Good comment.
Also, too, I want to thank staff for dropping off printed copies to my house under my request for ADA, especially when there were big documents. So, I really appreciate that because, days before meetings, I actually took the time, went through everything, read everything line by line, and made my notes. So I really do appreciate staff's involvement that way. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. But you still no tamales.
That is awesome. Thank you for acknowledging that. I put it in, and I think just an extra check on the background information in advance. I will flag though too for you. We're making notes today. For those of you that need a little more time to think through, I think we can certainly continue to take over the course of this entire strategic planning effort, continue to take feedback. So certainly feel free to stew on this as you need to. And I think you're going to get the notes from this meeting as well so that you can continue to stew on this and add to it as you need to. And agree, we can get them to you sooner. Any additional comments on this section before we move to the next one?
I think I saw possibly comments from Kim and Lilia, but I'm not quite sure, so we'll have to check in with them.
Eric, and we have another comment, and I wonder if it's communication in general, suggestions for 2021, better and more detection and technology for fireplace smoke and detecting unregistered fireplaces. So I think it's more like air district communication and notification system in general.
Okay.
So maybe put a star there, because we don't want to lose that comment.
Yeah. Okay, I'll flag this one as green. It might need to go somewhere else. All right, any more for this before we move to the next item, or check with our Spanish speaking translation and then move to the next item? Seeing none, I'll check with Mari and see if she's doing good.
¿Algún comentario que tengamos en español antes de que muestre la pantalla? Okay, parece que no hay ninguno, entonces ahorita voy a mostrar la pantalla. Erica, can I go ahead and share my screen, please?
Absolutely. And again, thank you all for your flexibility while we toggle streams and show you things in real time. We're taking advantage of technology, but I know it can be a little jarring as well. So your patience is appreciated.
Wait, did I? Here we go. Oh, I'm getting too many notifications. There you go. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta o comentario? Esto es lo que estuvieron escribiendo en lo de inglés.
Más grande, por favor.
¿Más grande? Ok.
Gracias.
Ajá.
Sí, yo tengo un comentario nada más, que sí agradezco que también me manden la información por correo, porque A veces me mandan por correo electrónico, pero a veces están tan chiquitas las letras que batallo para leerlas.
Okay, perfecto. She,
Entonces,
ajá.
ajá. Entonces mejor me gusta más cuando me mandan la información por correo, porque así puedo leer mejor.
Okay, gracias. She is appreciative that we actually mail copies to her. So the printed copies versus the emails, because with the emails version, sometimes the font is really small and she can't read it. So having that printed version is much better for her. So she appreciates that. ¿Algún otro comentario? Okay. I think we don't have any other comments. I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Excellent. All right, we're doing great. We're keeping moving. We're going to do these last few in just a couple minutes. So let me share my screen now. And we're back live. I added the comment specifically noting the Spanish speakers, but I think many of you appreciate the printed copies of materials, being able to read those in a larger font. So I did add that in, Mari, just so you know. Great. Okay, so our next one is translation, interpretation, and access during meetings, outside of meetings, the technology associated with this. We're doing this in real time, and there's always a couple hiccups either through Zoom or through translation. What's working well for you? What needs some adjustment? What access changes do we need that haven't already been spelled out for us?
Well, I really will say that like tonight's example of real-time translation has come a very far, we've come a very far from where we originally started out, where like literally a year ago, documents weren't even translated in a timely manner for our Spanish speakers. So, you know, we've come leaps and bounds, and I hope that continues.
Thanks for that. Yeah. Can you imagine? Gosh, I mean, I remember a year ago this time, I didn't even know how to really use a Zoom call with video, and now we do it day in and day out. So it's amazing how much we've adjusted with this virtual environment. But I will flag that, and thank you for that comment. Translation of documents has improved over time. Definitely a good, definitely a pro. Important and getting better.
Specifically tonight's
Any other,
actually, because that's really
impressive. Okay, real-time translation via Zoom in writing equals good. Thanks. Anything from our Spanish line? Since this is really specifically related to you know, some of the Spanish language interpretation, real-time or dual language, or in translation interpretation access. Anything else that's working before or after meetings that we should flag?
Looks like Isabel has something to
Sí,
say.
yo de mi parte sí agradezco mucho la traducción, porque pues si no tuviéramos traducción, pues era muy difícil para nosotros continuar con estas juntas. Y así, gracias a eso, tenemos la información que necesitamos y podemos participar también en lo que se necesita. Muchas gracias.
I do appreciate that. I'm sorry. I do appreciate that, says Miss Isabel, because this way we are able to participate. So it's definitely helpful to be able to capture the information in the meetings.
Can you say at the beginning, so definitely, is she acknowledging that it's working pretty well, the real time? Okay, great.
Yeah, so for her comment was more in terms of interpretation, so live interpretation. She feels that it is good because it allows her to participate actively in the meetings and capture the information.
Okay. Inclusive tenemos mejor interpretación que cuando teníamos nuestras juntas en persona.
And she lets us know that she feels that she even gets better interpreting this way than when we have the meetings in person.
Estamos de acuerdo, Isabel. Gracias por la interpretación, de verdad. Gracias, Isabel, por recordar eso.
Mrs. Lilia says, thank you, Isabel, for reminding us of that. Yes, we are happy.
Awesome. Well, kudos to the interpretation team and the translation team. You guys are just rock stars. Excellent. Thank you for that. Any additional comments? Any suggestions for improvement before we switch over to Mari and show your screen?
Nothing in the chat box.
All right, Mari, you're up. I'm going to stop share.
Ok, y aquí está. No sé si falte algo, pero aquí está para que ustedes lo puedan leer y darme alguna otra información que quisieran ver. O si estamos bien para poder proceder al siguiente tema.
Para mí está bien.
Okay,
Todo se mira bien. Y gracias, como digo, gracias por la interpretación.
Okay,
Mrs. Estela lets us know everything looks good to me. And Miss Isabel, thank you for the interpretation.
Awesome. Excellent. All right, I'm going to share my. Thank you, and I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to jump to membership, which we already talked a little bit about. So I'm going to move some of the green items already. You acknowledged some concerns about the committee makeup and whether or not we had enough residents, whether we had the right percentages, committee engagement, whether, roll call is showing who's participating, who's not. I have those noted, and those are going to move down to this section. Anything else that's working well or not working well, need some suggestions for 21 that would speak to how you want to focus on membership or if there's any adjustments to make there?
Erica, we do have a comment or a question from a member of the public. I'm wondering if we want to save that or if that was in relation to the previous slide.
Oh, is it related to membership or is it related to translation?
Laura, I'm not sure. Laura, maybe you can tell us which bucket this is related to. And if it's not, then maybe we can save it for general public comment at the end.
Well, I'm not getting notifications about the air monitoring subcommittee, and I don't even know when the meetings are, if I can make them. I just want to know what I can do to help. What should I monitor for? Which pollutant would help the most? Thanks.
Got it. So we do have that public members are not getting the notifications for subcommittee meetings and agendas for those, and I'll add that they want to be able to support committee goals. Got it. Thank you for that. I'm moving back down, so apologies for the quick scroll. Membership. Any additional comments related to membership that have not already been covered from previous comments? Because I know we had a couple of membership related comments already referenced.
I think Ayameen has a question or a comment.
Yeah, well, I do agree with Lisa's point that we need to recruit more residents. And I think in the past we have helped with that. I would just want to know what would be the process for us to reach out to some other residents. Would it be the same application that we have been using in the past? So more clarification on the specifics for us to use to recruit more residents.
Got it. Because you're in mid-cycle, so that makes some sense. Thank you. Any additional comments or working well or suggestions for that fit the category of membership? Your committee makeup, resident percentages, engagement.
Yes,
we have some flyers and mailboxes that try to advertise if they want to be on the AB 617 community to make up the flyers for me. Thanks.
Advertising the opening. Got it. Okay, since we're running low on time, I'm going to keep us moving. Mari,
Erica,
do you want to share? Oh,
excuse me, Erica, I had my hand up. Just real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that at every meeting, we should announce, especially the monthly meetings in particular, we should announce what percentage or the number of people who are on the committee versus who's here and who's not. Is it 40%? Is it 50%, 60%? What is the percentile? Or just give me the number out of how many people, warm bodies we have on the committee.
Got it.
Because I think when you verbalize that, that just shows how much work we all have to do to get people involved. Thank you.
And really quickly, Erica, Ed would like to see outreach to the Hmong community.
It's a suggestion.
Yes, and then Keith has a quick comment.
Hi, Keith.
Yeah, my quick comment is just, does the committee represent geographically the different areas within the AB 617 area? That was it.
I'm going to fix all the spelling on this. And it's a question. All right. Any more, Kim or Hannah, while I'm cleaning up my notes?
I think we captured.
We don't see anything
at all.
Okay. All right. Let's check and make sure it does. Okay. Mari, are you ready? I'm going to go ahead and stop share, I think. Oh, did you need to see the screen? Nope, she's good. Okay.
Okay, aquí
We're
está
almost done, guys. You're doing good.
Okay, aquí está la información que estuvieron viendo en inglés. No sé si necesitan que incluya algo más o cambie algo. ¿Algún comentario en español? Parece que no hay comentarios. Erica, we can proceed.
Great. All right, last item, and this is for the entire group. I'm going to share my screen again. And this is really an opportunity for you all to talk about the big bucket of administration. We've talked about a bunch of things, and we want to try and frame this in the context of goals, right? So at the end of the year, what does success look like for you in this specific category? So we're not going to be able to take everybody's comments. We're going to ask you to type them in the chat if you can, and we'll capture them all because we're running light on time. But I do want to flag for you, if we could fast forward to the end of 2021, what do you think success would look like from an administrative standpoint? One big thing, just one. What is the one administrative improvement or process that if we do it this year is really moving the needle and that you want to accomplish in 2021? So maybe we'll take one live comment, and if everybody else can put them in the chat, then we'll be able to copy and paste them in, and you'll be able to see them, and we'll show those after the committee standing update.
Okay, the first hand up is from Isabel.
Isabel.
Sí, mi comentario sería lo que a mí me gustaría ver al final es tener un aire limpio, libre de asma, libre de todas las enfermedades. Eso sería lo más maravilloso que me gustaría tener.
Mrs. Isabel lets us know what I would really like to see is clean air, free of asthma, free of all contaminants. That's what I would really like to see.
Got it.
No tener que recorrer millas hasta la montaña para respirar el aire puro. Salir a la puerta y respirarlo aquí mismo. No tener que caminar, porque a mí me gusta los fines de semana ir a cargar pilas a las montañas. No es justo ir a caminar hasta, se puede decir, 90 millas para poder llevar a Chevrolet, para poder llegar a Yosemite, pudiendo salir afuera de nuestra casa y respirar ese aire puro. De verdad, yo pienso que sería algo que quisiéramos todas.
Mrs. Lilia Veresi lets us know that she would love to be able to have clean, fresh air in her area, not have to drive 90 miles out to Shaver Lake or Yosemite just to be able to breathe fresh air, fresh, clean air.
Thank you for that. So we need to work on anything to get us there. Wonderful. So I am going to ask all of you to put your notes in the chat. I will add those in during our standing updates, which we still need to do on the agenda. And I want to thank you for at least helping us move forward on this process for the first bucket of administration so far. And we do have a couple more things to cover over the course of the next few minutes. So I do want to move us into the updates that we identified. We did take one standing update already because we took the truck rerouting subcommittee note already. I will ask the Air District staff to provide the other standing updates and then move straight into enforcement.
Real quick, with the school and school bus items, I don't know if Todd's here and is prepared to talk about it, but I know they are in discussions with Fresno Unified Schools on a couple of buses and continuing to work on the application for filtration.
Yeah, Jamie, I am here, and that's a very good summary of kind of where we're. Yeah, we're working with them. They are, you know, as thanks to this committee, they're very actively engaged with us now, and we are working on a couple of applications for some buses and excuse me, associated infrastructure.
One other thing on that, so this is, I'm not sure if everybody knows this. We did take a board item. So in order to start new programs, we actually have to, you know, have the authorization to create those programs. And so we did take a board item to start to basically allow the district to start an air filtration program at schools. So that program, we now have the authority to you know, take projects and possibly be able to fund them. And I know we have Keith on here, and he has had an evaluation at his school and has submitted some of the documentation. So he's with Fresno Intermediate School. It was a project that they had submitted to us.
And I think if I can put her on the spot, if Naomi maybe wants to do the 1-minute update of the vegetative barriers. We've had some exciting meetings about that in the last week or so.
Yeah, I'll do the last update and then I'll turn it over next month. It will be Yesenia and Aurelio. They are the two fellows from the Climate Core program that will be helping us implement two of our strategies that we included in our SERP, the vegetative barriers and the urban greening projects. So we had a very productive meeting where we identified the partners that we're going to be working with. There's already an opportunity to partner with Tree Fresno to plant trees. They already have the funding for those trees, and this is going to happen in North and the 99. But we're also working towards the idea of having a tree planting early April. And for that, we're going to include a participatory process where all of you and community members at large are going to be able to tell us which areas to prioritize to plant these trees. And that's just to get us going towards the end of the fellowship for Yesenia and Aurelio. That will leave us with a roadmap that will take us to the different phases beyond their fellowship of what can we do after this particular tree planting. So that's what we have.
Great. So those sound like our, correct me if I'm wrong, your team, that's two subcommittee updates. Do we want to move into a CARB update or enforcement update? Any additionals?
I can give a quick CARB update, if that's all right, Erica. Just really quick, we have some new management at CARB related to AB 617. So in the chat, I put our new Deputy Executive Director's bio, Chanel Fletcher, as well as the new Director of the Office of Community Air Protection, Deldy Reyes. So if you want to read about them and their backgrounds, we're real excited. It's in the chat. Our February board meeting coming up on the 25th, 26th. I think it's the 25th. I'm also in the link. Will be about there'll be an item selecting next year's communities. So that will be up there. And I guess the final thing is our guidance document, the blueprint, is currently being updated by a community-led group, a writing group. And so as that moves along, we'll be giving some more updates. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any enforcement updates from CARB or the Air District to share?
Eric, I don't know if we missed a monitoring update according to the agenda.
Yeah.
Into that later, but just something really quickly for the monitoring update. Just wanted to let everybody know that we just recently installed a PM25 monitor at at Madison Elementary. So right now, that was just installed on Friday, this past Friday. So we should be getting that up onto the website pretty soon. And so pretty excited about that. So we only have one site left, and that's Edison High School. And we're still waiting for their staff to, all the staff that's involved in the decision-making will be returning in March. So we'll reach out back to them on that to get that going. So that's all set up. Just wanted to let everybody know that.
Thank you, Chai, and thank you for jumping in on the monitoring update. Any additional things that we missed on the agenda monitoring updates? We got all the subcommittees. Any questions about enforcement, comments about enforcement, updates?
All right, I think if you guys are ready for me, I'll go ahead and do the district's enforcement update.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is timely. We were talking earlier about, the importance of getting emission reductions in the community, and a big part of that is, having this extra enhanced enforcement out there to make sure that people are following the regulations that are in place, and that we're getting the reductions that those regulations are designed to achieve. So I
think we lost Jason.
Did we lose Jason?
Yes.
Oh no. All right, Jason's like, what were we saying about technology and how well it works sometimes and doesn't work others? Jason, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you. All right, in the interest, I
was just gonna say probably move on to Justin, and Jason can probably jump back on. And
yeah, sorry about that. Justin, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Shields, and I'm from CARB's Enforcement Division. I want to thank you for giving me the time to talk tonight, and I'll be very brief, but I wanted to talk about what CARB did in the fourth quarter of 2020. First, I want you to forgive me for the background noise and not for having my camera on. I had an emergency come up, and I will need to provide my update in transit. So to begin, CARB staff, we were in South Central Fresno 2 days in the fourth quarter of 2020. During this time, we performed 49 program inspections on 45 heavy-duty diesel vehicles, and we issued 3 citations. All 3 citations were issued to vehicle owners for non-compliant transportation refrigeration units, otherwise known as TRUs. In addition, CARB staff inspected 2 pieces of off-road equipment and found them to be in compliance with our rules and regulations. While in the field, CARB staff performed roaming idling inspections and investigated 43 heavy-duty diesel vehicles to determine compliance with the state idling regulations. All of the heavy-duty diesel vehicles investigated for idling were found to be in compliance with our idling rules and regulations. CARB staff focused on the roaming inspections in areas the community had voiced idling concerns of. In addition, I spent several hours on Orange Avenue and took down information to audit potentially non-compliant heavy-duty diesel vehicles. CARB does not have authority on the truck route, but I wanted to make sure that the heavy-duty diesel trucks that were seen on the road were compliant. The trucks that I did see appeared to be compliant with our rules and regulations, but audits can take some time, so if new information comes to light, then I will provide that as the next enforcement update. If we have time, I wanted to talk about 2021, and I wanted to know if there were any areas of the community would like to see CARB enforcement, or if there is anything that you would like enforcement to accomplish in this new year. And since there may not be enough time tonight, if you want to contact me at a later date, I'll put my information in the chat. And if you're on the phone, you can send me an email at justin, justin.shields, SHIELDS, @arb.ca.gov.
Thank you for that, Justin. And his request is there any area or any place where you would want to see CARB enforcement that's in the boundary? Justin's information is in the chat, which you can email him at any time. You can also type your request into the chat specifically as well. If you've got any locations, we'll make sure Justin gets that info too. I want to make sure we have enough time for enforcement, and I don't know if we've got, do we have him back?
Yeah,
Jason?
I'm back. Can you guys hear me now?
There you are. Yeah, a little bit better.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
my internet chose to drop out right as I started talking. So, all right. So
go ahead and finish.
So some quick updates on the district's enforcement activities. This report will cover, basically all of our enforcement over the second half of 2020. So from July through the end of December. First of all, our residential wood burning enforcement, again, our residential wood burning season is from November 1st through the end of February each year. Our commitment in the SERP was to do enhanced enforcement of 4 hours of enforcement on each declared wood burning curtailment day. And so for the first half of this wood burning season, again, November and December, we responded to 6 public complaints that were related to residential wood burning, one of those resulting in a violation that was issued. And then in total, from both complaint response and our enforcement that we're doing, just every day anyways, we had a total of 47 violations found within this AB 617 community during November and December of 2020. Our enforcement of illegal open burning, our commitment in the SERP was to do 1 targeted enforcement effort during each calendar quarter. So during the 3rd and 4th quarters of 2020, we responded to 14 public complaints in addition to doing surveillance. 2 of those complaints were for commercial and industrial burning complaints. The other 12 were residential open burning complaints, and in all there were 5 violations issued for confirmed violations. Next, our fugitive dust, the district's Regulation 8 requirements. Our SERP commitment was to do 1 targeted enforcement effort during the 2nd quarter and 3rd quarter of each year. These being the quarters where we expect it to be the driest times of the year, where we're most likely to see fugitive dust issues from earth moving activities. So in the 3rd quarter of last year, we did our targeted enforcement effort, which included inspections at 42 different construction project sites located within the community. Statewide anti-idling enforcement. We've been continuing to do enforcement, targeted enforcement in that area as well. 1 targeted enforcement effort during each quarter as well. So the 3rd and 4th quarters of 2020, we were out there in the community doing additional surveillance for idling diesel trucks. However, no additional violations were found from those surveillance efforts in the 2nd half of the year. And then our stationary source inspections, our SERP commitment on this one was increased inspection frequency at facilities that had emission violations within the past 3 years. So from July through December, we had a total of 141 stationary source inspections. And out of those, we found 23 new violations, 7 of which were emissions related. The rest of those violations being administrative, record keeping, something of that nature. And then in all, over the past 6 months, we responded to a total of 31 public complaints within the community. 12 of those were open burning complaints, 6 fugitive dust, 6 fireplace complaints, 2 commercial burning complaints, 2 nuisance or odor nuisance complaints, 2 complaints alleging facility violations, and then 1 for visible emissions. Lastly, of course, our complaints can be reported to the district anytime. You can call, there's an 800 number You can also report complaints through our website and through our mobile app. One thing that came up, we did this report on Monday night in Shafter, and one of the requests that we received was if we could put together a kind of a one-page summary of these statistics to provide to the community. So that was something that we are working on putting together, both for the Shafter community, but also for Fresno, and we look to send that out here very shortly after the meeting. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those in the chat, or you can send me an email afterwards. My email is jason.lawler@valliere.org, or you can email the 617 email as well.
Awesome. Jason, thank you. There is a question for you in the chat from Ivanka, and I know that we are running light on time, so I'm going to ask you if you can answer that in the chat. I'd appreciate it. And it's regarding diesel trucks and where, how close they can be to houses. Any other questions about enforcement? I want to acknowledge that we're at 7:30, so we want to get us done as quickly as possible, but I do want to give you guys a chance to chat about enforcement.
I would like to encourage Larry, because he's a resident. He lives in the central of the 8617 area and just had an experience regarding enforcement that of a report that was not properly addressed in a timely manner.
I think you were breaking up a little bit, Naimeen, and I want to make sure I heard you. Something about, did anyone catch that really well? Because I didn't.
I think she's referring to a experience Larry had where he called in a complaint in the Air District, maybe didn't respond as quickly as we need to. I did forward the information on to Jason and Ryan and our compliance director so that they can find out what's going on and why that happened. So Larry, we're gonna reach out to you tomorrow, but I did get that message.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, you were breaking up, Naimeen. I didn't catch it all, but I appreciate, Jamie, you translated for me.
I only knew because it was a direct chat to me that I got looped in.
Got it. Okay, there are a lot of comments in the chat. I think most of them got answered. Were there any comments in the chat, questions in the chat that did not get answered? In case you're still looking for an answer, I don't want to leave anybody hanging, but there was a lot of call and response in there. And I think that is getting addressed. So I want to be mindful of that. I want to be mindful of time. And I see a hand from Lisa.
Keith from the Washington School District had a question in regards to how to obtain money for the school filtration system. I think, I don't think that got answered.
Actually, Todd said that he was going to connect with Keith directly tomorrow on the filtration program. Yeah.
All right. Keith, if you have a problem, give me a call.
I think, let me see, my chat's slowing down. Let's see, for clarity, let's see, Eric says, for clarity, the SERP budget will have additional funds for monitoring once the last install at Edison is made. So lots of answers related to schools, related to the monitoring, and some questions related to filtration budget. And thank you for those of you that are asking those questions, and then those of you that are answering them. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, so we are wrapping up. We had a lot of public comments during the meeting, so a lot of those got answered in real time. I will ask Heather to check YouTube and see if there's anything that's showing up on Facebook and YouTube, and it sounds like there is not. Let me do one last screen share for you so you can see what we said, what you all said, as it relates to the very specific goals you have from an administrative standpoint. I'm going to share my screen so you can see it, and then we're going to wrap up our meeting in just a sec. So these are some of the goals. A few of you highlighted and doubled down on the comment about clean air, free of asthma, free of contaminants, not to have to drive out of the area to breathe that clean air. That's important for a number of you, and that's the reason you're all here. To accomplish that, thinking about more effective working as this group, thinking about the process so we can move faster. You really want a roadmap of strategies. You really want to prioritize the SERP. You want to understand funding. Those are all on the planning cycle for the remaining of the annual planning. So we're definitely on the right track. You want to see policy, land use policy changes. You want to see breakdowns of budget. You want to see how you're doing on the funding and the spend down and how much is left. You want the CERP tracker to include all your priorities. That's on the list to do. And you want to crack down on unregistered fireplaces. So those are the things that we saw in the chat. And we certainly, I think those were already translated into Spanish, but Mari, I'll keep this, I'll make sure you have a copy of this to make sure we can get a copy of this to our Spanish language participants as well. But these are some of the administrative goals that you have. We're going to continue this process in the cycle and the way that we talked about in the 3 to 4 meetings. You're going to cover all of those things. You're going to prioritize the CERP. You're going to make sure you understand all the things that are important for how you make this year really useful from a committee standpoint. So we can just tighten everything up and have it work the way that you want it to. Any other committee member questions or comments before we take our last public comment and wrap up and head over to Ed? Seeing none, I want to go to Ed and then I'll go to the phone line.
Again, I want to thank everyone for participating in this meeting. I'm honored and awed at the amount of talent and concern to clean up our community. There's one big thing happening that I want to make everyone aware of. And in fact, Jose Saldana, if I said that right, I'm glad, but if I didn't, please forgive me, indicated that there's going to be a rail listening session on March the 4th from 5 to 7. It will have Spanish translation. CARB is hosting this, and it'll be issues regarding rail and how we can clean up the air around rail. And being on the Stockton committee also, that has been a big issue for them. Rail has the potential of reducing tons of particulate emissions in South Central Fresno, and I would encourage everyone to look into that. Thank you again.
Excellent. Thank you, Ed. I'm seeing some comments in the chat, specifically requesting clarity on 93 acres amendment in the city of Fresno. And then again, this listening session related to rail. So that's really important for everyone to know. And if there are any additional details that can be shared, please drop those in the chat so that we can share those broadly. All right, I am feeling like we're done. I see one additional hand, which will close out our meeting from an 814 phone number.
Oh, yes. Do you need someone to go around in the next 2 weeks to look for like chimneys and fireplaces burning and things? Like in the evenings? You don't usually work in the evenings, do you?
It sounds like an enforcement question on the schedule, on whether or not there is activity and monitoring in the evenings. I think I have heard that there is. I will defer to the Air District team on that. But there is a request from the public that be started or continued or enhanced over time, specifically now. Excellent. All right. Well, we're a little over time, and I appreciate your thoughts and your comments and your patience while we work through this process. And we're going to continue with the next bucket, which we've done administration. The next bucket is really going to be to talk about other goals in the other categories, in the CERP in particular, and really hone in on some of the meat of your CERP prioritization. So thank you for that. The next meeting, I think, is currently scheduled for March, and we'll have additional follow-up via doodle poll if there needs to be a separate meeting off sync to make sure that this gets done in the right cycle for you all. So expect to hear from the Air District on that. Any last comments from the Air District or the committee before we adjourn this meeting? Thank you all so much. Yes, Eric, the Air District will circle back on your questions in later communication, either via email or via chat. We'll leave this up so that we make sure that they see it and that they get back to you. And it looks like this community, oh, yes, Crystal has dropped in the listening session details as well. So if you haven't looked at the chat, take a look so you can see what that rail yard listening session details are. And that might be worth sending out via email as well. I appreciate the fun hats. I appreciate all the input. I appreciate so many of you weighing in. We'll make sure these notes get shared and documented, and that action is actually moved forward as well on some of these recommendations for 21. Thank you.
Thank you. Love the hat, Naomi.
Isn't it cute?
And it moves. Naomi, show us.